Hello there. My name is Olatunji Shobodu, and this is Leadership in 30 Minutes. This is Leadership in 30 Minutes. And first, let me apologize for not honoring our timing yesterday. We normally meet 11 a.m. West African time on Thursdays, but yesterday was just an exceptional day. So, my sincere apologies, please. My sincere apologies. So, I'm trying to make up for yesterday, today by this broadcast. Yesterday, we were supposed to have spoken to the issue of how to lead slothful people, or if you like, how to lead lazy people, how to lead lazy people. So that's what I'll be speaking on leadership in 30 minutes today. It's your favorite leadership program where we focus on different aspects of what it takes to be a leader indeed, a leader who is credible, a leader who can be trusted, what it takes to be one who does leadership right. And so we look at many issues that leaders, often contend with. And, we're examining the case of having to lead people who are lazy or slothful, or if you like, not pulling their weight. That's what we're looking at today. And I suspect that you may have found yourself in a situation like that where you have to contend with leading lazy people. All right, leading lazy people. I mean, I can, tell you that it's not the easiest thing to do. Um, and I'm sure if I were to ask you, your first option probably would be just get rid of them. That's what some leaders would prefer. I can do with just those who are serious, those who want to learn, who want to work, those who can make themselves useful. All right, not people who would be a burden. Um, but um, as they say, if wishes were horses, beggars will ride. We often don't have it our way. When you have lazy people on your team, you often can't just send them away, and it's not necessarily the right thing to do. It's not necessarily the right thing to do. Yes, they are lazy. Yes, you are not getting value, for their presence in your team, but somebody has to develop them. They have to develop. Do you just get rid of them without trying? I don't think so. But the issue is that this is something that should concern any leader of substance. Okay. um, it's often a major cause, for concern. Some leaders regret. Some leaders, this is a big challenge. All right. um, Particularly those who are purposeful, who are credible, those who take their leadership responsibility, seriously. They are often concerned when they have a team, that is not, um, how do you put it, revving on all cylinders. You want everyone to be up and doing. You want everyone, to cooperate actively and effectively with you. You want everyone, to bring their A game to the table. You certainly don't want people who are not contributing. As we would say in economics, you don't want free riders or interlopers. Okay, people who just take advantage of what others are doing and they just coast along. All right. You don't want them in your team. You don't want those to be the people that you're having, to nurture. But then what happens when you have them? What happens, when you identify them? What do you do? How best do you address? Um, that phenomenon and still come through, if as effective in your leadership assignment. That's what I'd like to run through, over the course of today's session. Now, if you look at it, when you say people are lazy, what really is the challenge? Let's appreciate that challenge. What does it do to you? What cost, does that impose on you, or what burden does that put on leadership? One of the very clear things that you can immediately establish is that the more lazy people you have in your team, the more underperforming your team would be. The more underperforming your team will be. Because the fact that somebody is lazy doesn't mean that the person does not have capability or capacity, to add value. It simply means, in fact, some of them can be pretty intelligent, but it means that they are not able, to take full advantage, all right, and to deploy what they have in them that is capable of adding value, and to that extent is a shame. To that extent is a shame. Basically, lazy people need help. They need help because they can't fulfill their potential. All right, for a number of reasons that we would look at. So the phenomenon of lazy people underperforms your team, underperforms your team. The more of them you have, the greater will be the challenge that you have to perform. Now, one of the implications of that is that it it overburdens some other players in the team, because what you find is that in the quest to still ensure that your team delivers on its mandate, or can achieve excellent performance or respectable performance even, you have to engage the hardworking ones, perhaps more. You put more burden on them. They have to take responsibility. They have to be the one who end up underwriting, the shortfall that is attributed to the lazy one. And then, of course, you don't. That's not fairness. That's not having a level playing field. So you see, the underperformance is there. Look at what it leads to when other members of the team are overburdened. All right, they also can wear out with time, and they almost always will wear out with time, because the more they have to, pick up the laxity of those who are not pulling their weights, the longer they have to do that, the greater will be the pressure on them. And so they also will get to the point where they begin to lose steam, where they begin to lose their panache. And so even high flyers, become average performers, not because of any other thing, but because they're having to carry for too long, the burden of the laggards in the team. Okay, so you see that also as as um, as a consequence. Now, you could argue that, okay, for those who carry the burden of others, maybe you want to compensate them in, some sense or the other. The issue is that even if you went that route, well, you can't do that for long. The reality is that those who are high flyers cannot, and should not be made to carry the burden, of the non-performers for too long. If there is anything like that, it should be something that happens, within a short period, and you have to really deal with the laxity, the laggards. You have to do something about that. You have either to work on them. I will show you very shortly some of the things that you can do, or you may have to get rid of them. So while we're not saying you should get rid of them as the first thing, we're also not ruling out, getting rid of some members of the team, in order to, for the good of everybody. In fact, for the good of the laggards themselves, when it comes to it. And there can be situations when that has to be, the case. Of course, when you have these laggards or these lazy people in your team, it threatens the legacy that you can leave behind as a leader. Now, so where would be your successors? How many successors can you create? All right, it limits. And then to what extent will the great job that you have done on your people be sustained, all right, into the future? Now, the more you have laggards in your team, the more that becomes far-fetched, the more that becomes far-fetched. And the legacy of the leader is very important. Every leader should guard that jealously. Every leader should guard their legacy jealously. Now, these laggards also will resist the transformational effort of the leader. All right. You're going to find it difficult changing them. All right. Because as we'll see, soon, the lazy attribute, all right, is a character issue. Is a character issue. And the job of leadership is to build a fine character, is to build a leadership personality, all right, in your people. The key and the root to a performance, all right, to building competence and capacity in your people is to build them first in the areas of their character. So lazy people, slothful people, laggards, they are falling short in that vital area, in a vital area of character. And if I might say, the opposite of the attribute is faithfulness or diligence, if you like. So they are lacking in diligence. When somebody is lacking in diligence, when somebody is not faithful, they are not committed to the assignment that they have been given, then you say they are lazy. Then you say they are laggards. So when they do have that character issue, it becomes an issue. How does the leader achieve, that transformation that is necessary in order for them to be made or developed into leaders in their own right? Then, of course, they threat to the team in another sense, in the sense that they represent a leaven. What is leaven? Yeast. The more you have them, they are like little foxes. The more you have them in your team, all right, they can be a negative influence on others. You know, for instance, I mean, people observe that, look, I am working hard, I'm pulling my weight, I'm making, very serious contributions, but there are just some guys who are just hanging around, who are just drawing their pay, you know, at the end of the month, yet they are not making any contribution. All right. So their continuous presence and the fact that they keep doing that, free riding on everybody else and on the system, can discourage me. So I'm beginning to ask myself, so what's in it for me? Why must I be the scapegoat? Now, you don't. So if you keep these guys around and nothing is being done actively about them, then they soon affect others, because some others also believe, I mean, who doesn't want to just relax and rest and, draw their salaries at the end of every month? Everybody wants to do that if we have an opportunity. So if you can't have some people who are doing that and getting away with it, so to speak, and then you have the other ones who are working, themselves out, they won't continue to do that. Even if you had carrots, even if you had incentives, that will only last for so long. Ultimately, the more you keep these guys, the greater the threat they become. So they can act as leaven. And before you know it, if you don't do anything, you would have more of laggards than performers in your team, more of slothful people than diligent people, just because you have, accommodated. It will also affect the cohesion of your team. It will affect the cohesion of your team. And we need not say too much about that. I'm sure you can understand that. You can understand the reason why that would be the case. Okay. And of course, the laggards will be weak candidates for leadership. So as leadership opportunities open, as leadership responsibilities are called for, they are not candidates. They are not the right kinds of people that you should assign, for that purpose. But guess what will happen if you have them and you don't do anything about them? Then of course, when those situations arise, you may be forced, all right, to have to put incompetent people, in positions of leadership, So these are some of the issues that a leader would face. These are some of the imminent realities that you may find yourself having to grapple with as a leader if you continue to harbor, lazy people and you don't do anything about them. Let's look at what are some of the manifestations and possibly consequences of having these sets of people in your team, and that will lead me into the more specific things that you can do and should do when you do have them. And I can almost guarantee that you will have in your team at some point or the other people with these kinds of challenges or attributes. And yes, I mean, laziness also come in degrees, so you can also look at it as ways through which even those who are diligent, all right, you can add punch, as it were, to their game. You can up their game. So it's not what I'll be suggesting to you is not just useful for those who are, you know, certified lazy or laggards, but also those who, you know, um, but also things you can do to up the game of those who are already pulling their weight. Now, you see, the slothful will lose relevance. That's number one. They lose relevance and dignity. They lose relevance and dignity within the team. There is no way that their team members will continue to rate them high. Even you as a leader, will be hard pressed to accord them the kind of respect and relevance that you accord to others. Okay, that's one of the things they will hardly be reckoned with. Ultimately, they're going to be like second class citizens within your team. All right, and some people would say they will be forced to do labor because when you do get into the things that you need to do, you will see why they would end up sooner than later like the slaves of the team, because that's what is going to take them, all right, to make their own contributions. You have to closely mark them and assign certain kinds of responsibilities to them. Much of it they may not like, but that's because of who they have presented themselves to be within the team. Number two, they are weak finishers. All right, they are weak finishers. Some of them can even get to start their work. It's not that they are totally useless. It's not that they're not doing anything, but they start the work, they get the work to a stage, and just to get the work finished becomes a problem. All right, they are lackadaisical about towards their work. They are not business-like. Their mindset is that, okay, I can always complete this, when I want. I still have more time and all of that. So you can't rely on them as good finishers. They are weak finishers. When you have laggards in your team, they can drop the ball at critical moments. All right, they can drop the ball at critical moments. They can drop the ball at critical moments, and you don't want to have that. The Bible says, for example, in Proverbs 12 and verse 27, it said, the slothful man, will not even roast what he has caught from hunting. It's too lazy. I mean, you caught, game from hunting and you can't even get to the point of roasting it. What's the essence? Why would you start something and not finish it? They're weak finishers. So a leader must never depend on them, all right, when it comes to finishing. When it comes, to the last lap, if you like, all right, because they don't have it in them. They are wasters of opportunities. They are wasters of opportunities. The slothful, I mean, like you would see in that example. So you had an opportunity, you caught game, or you started something, a wonderful opportunity presents itself, and you have started out on it, and you cannot finish it just because you are lazy. You can't finish it. Also, one of the consequences is that they go hungry. they go hungry. And I'm going to talk about that. And that's an important, aspect of how we would learn to deal with those who are lazy. Hunger can be a very powerful instrument, all right, for for whipping them into line, or for drumming reality, okay, into their hearts and into their mindset. They go hungry. Okay, the idle soul is going to be hungry. When you are idle, sooner than later you will go hungry. And why? The reason is clear. We're told also from scripture that whoever does not work does not have a right to eat. Okay, to give food to somebody who does not work is to be sentimental, all right, and is to do damage to that person. Why? Because the right that the person who does not work has is that person has a right to hunger. That person doesn't have a right to eating. If you want to eat, then you had better work. So a leader can be so magnanimous, always, as to still allow those who do not contribute to keep benefiting from the team. No, if you do that, then that's injustice. If you do that, that is not fair play. The playing field is not level. And the leader, a good leader, knows that one of the primary conditions that must exist, the environment of leadership, for you to be effective, you must create an atmosphere of fairness. A level playing field, all right, must be in place. Everybody must know that I have the same rights, all right, in this team as everybody else. If that is not there, forget every other thing you are doing. That's number one priority of leaders. If you are not doing that, you are doing something very wrong. Very, very wrong. Okay. So you can see it in this case that you can't be so sentimental as to allow people who are making no contributions to be benefiting from the team. It's unacceptable. It's not right. All right. And apart from the fact that it's not fair, you are encouraging them to continue in their laziness. All right. So, they go hungry and we should allow them to go hungry. Lazy people give excuses. He will tell you a lion is outside, it's raining, is this, is that. There's always an excuse. There's always an excuse. All right. They always have a reason not to do something. They always have a reason not to do something. They are ruled, therefore, by fear. They are ruled by fear. All right. Instead of by faith. They're ruled by fear. The moment they see one obstacle or the other, they don't have the stamina. They can't endure, and so, again, they fail to pull their weight. They fail to pull their weight. They lack understanding. They lack understanding. I like a scripture that talks about that particular issue. I think it's Proverbs 24 and verse 30. Here is what he says. He said, I went by the field of the slothful and by the vineyard of the man void of understanding. So when you're dealing with lazy people, at times, if you must have pity on them, not by giving them food, have pity on them, by acknowledging that the reason that they are lazy is because they lack understanding. They lack understanding. If they knew more than they know, they will not fold their arms. If they knew more than they know, they wouldn't see a wonderful opportunity and be messing up with it. They lack understanding. They are void of understanding. I love that. And that is useful, for us as leaders, because you then know what to treat. All right. You know what to treat. If I were to ask many of us, okay, so what's the cause of laziness? All right. We just know that people are slothful, they're laggards, they're lazy, they wouldn't work. But there's a root cause. What's the root cause? It's not very obvious, but look at it here. It says they are void of understanding. So a lot of things I'm talking about, they are the symptoms of the root cause. They lack understanding. They lack understanding. So if you want to deal with lazy people in your team, you have to focus on building their understanding, addressing that void that or in understanding that exists in them. If they knew more than they knew, if they understood more than they understand, they can't be lazy. That's what we're told here. They can't be lazy. And that's the truth. If somebody really knew what is at stake, or somebody really knew, what he or she would get, or what he or she will lose, all right, by folding their arms, watching everybody else and not doing anything, I bet you they would rise up. And bearing every odd, they will commit themselves, all right, to pursue so that they can realize. That's what understanding does. That's what understanding does. When the Bible talks about, if you know the truth, you shall know the truth will set you free. That knowledge of the truth is really about understanding. He said, look, if you truly understand, you will be free from laziness. All right. There are things that won't hold you down. There are things that will not constitute themselves as the obstacle that they are today. It is because you don't have sufficient. There's a level of understanding that you need to overcome every challenge in life. So Solomon was saying, he said, get wisdom. But look at what follows. He said, with all you're getting, get understanding. All right. So your pursuit of wisdom does not even require as much effort as the pursuit of understanding, because he said, get wisdom. All right. But then when it came to understanding, he didn't say get understanding. He said, with all you're getting, that is, with every effort you can muster, get understanding. Get understanding, because that's the key. That's the key. No wonder when God was asking Solomon, who wanted to be a credible leader, he said, look, I want to be able to lead this your people well. And God said, what do you want? Solomon said, give me an understanding heart. He understood the key. He understood the key. So you see there, they lack understanding. And we need to be able to do that. They oversleep. They enjoy sleeping, just lazing around. The assets, when you commit assets, ideas, valuable things in their hands, with time, they lose value. That's the problem for leaders. They lose value. So there are things you can't commit into the hands of the lazy. All right? This is still Leadership in 30 Minutes. And we meet once a week to discuss and explore different aspects of leadership. Okay? And today we're speaking on the subject, leading lazy people. It's a reality. It's a reality. They're too comfortable in their skin. They're too comfortable in their skin. They're too comfortable in their skin. All right? They're too relaxed. There's no passion. All right? They're too relaxed. Everything goes, things will fall into place. I can do things my own time. That's how they operate. And that's not acceptable. Nobody should want to do things in his own time. The world does not run in that manner. Except, of course, you are programming yourself, for failure. You are programming yourself for failure. So let's go on. What's the challenge of the leader who is saddled with lazy people, laggards, people who you can't trust, all right, to bring value to the table? The challenge is to turn them into diligent people. That's the challenge that you as a leader has to confront. When you have lazy people, how do you turn them to diligent people? How do you turn them to diligent people? This subject was particularly of concern to Solomon, because you could see the gamut of counsel, of insights, of wisdom that he gave on how to on the subject of slothful, idle, lazy people. All right. And that tells you, because when you look at Solomon, you look at Solomon from the point of view of leadership. All right. You see how concerned a leader, ought to be when you're saddled or confronted with people who are lazy. Like I said earlier on, it is a character development challenge. When you see a lazy person, it's a character issue, pure and simple. It's a character issue. All right. You have a character issue on your hands. And that character issue, one of the ways of dealing with it is by building understanding. So, what are the things you do? I'm going to share 9 things that you can do. And I think I just remembered the 10th, but 9 things that you can do very quickly. The first thing is that they have to be very closely supervised. The kind of leeway that you give to others who are pulling their weight, you can't give to them. They have to be very closely supervised, either by you or you put a structure in place where they are supervised. You can have them attached to some other members of the team, or supervised by some other members of the team, people who can hold them to account for delivering, at the very micro level. You see, some people talk about, I don't want to be micromanaged and all of that stuff, that leaders shouldn't micromanage. Some of those comments, need to be applied in context. There are situations where a leader has to either micromanage or put a structure in place for a follower, a team member to be micromanaged. And this is one of them, where they are lazy, where they are laggards and slothful, and don't have the initiative, all right, to do the needful. They can't on them by their own, all right? They lack that attribute of diligence. They lack that attribute of diligence. And you must not accommodate people who are not faithful, who are not diligent in a team. You weaken the firepower of the team when you don't have people who are diligent. All right? So that's the first thing. You have to ensure that they are closely marked, closely supervised. They must be micromanaged. You must hold their feet to the fire, as they say. That's one of the things that you want to do. Number 2, you have to teach them to see, recognize, and seize opportunities. Teach them to recognize and see opportunities. If they can recognize opportunities, they will not catch game, all right, and fail to roast it, because they don't understand opportunities. When they understand opportunities, okay, and can seize it, then it's also one of the things that you want to do. It's one of the things that you want to do. Proverbs 12 and verse 27 gives us an insight into that. Now, I spoke about hunger. So my third point is you need to humble them by hunger. Let them expose them to suffer the consequences of their laxity. They must feel the heat. They must suffer the consequences. If that doesn't happen, they must be allowed to hunger. All right? In the corporate setting, let them suffer by not, of course, you don't promote people like that. You don't even give them a bonus. They don't qualify for it. You sanction them if you have to. The consequences of laziness should bear down. You should allow it to bear down on them fully. Why? Because it has a way of waking them up. It has a way of jolting them. It's a measure of discipline for the leader to chastise the one who is falling behind. Remember, it's important for you to get the message across that you run a level playing field. and that nobody is going to be protected, particularly while some others are making contributions and they are not making contributions. That message needs to be out there. Everyone needs to understand. And when those who are not pulling their weight understand it, it helps them to know that the only way to advance, the only way to get any benefit within this team is for you to stand up to be counted. Stand up to be counted. Stand up to be counted. Do you know that when you look at the parable of the talents, you remember that lazy, slothful, the third servant? Look at what was done to him. He was scolded. Then he was deprived of the talent that was given. They said, take the talent from him. And then he was dealt with. They said, bring him out here and deal with him. So the consequences of his slothfulness were visited squarely on him. It's not out of wickedness, it's out of fairness. It's not wickedness by the leader, it's love by the leader. Why? Because it has a way of, as some people will say, waking him up, getting him back, all right, to his senses. Okay? That's what it does. That's what it does. I mean, we're told somewhere that Jesus suffered, that he learned obedience by the things that he suffered. So you need to be exposed to the consequences of your laxity for you to learn obedience as a result. Okay? All right. So that's number 3. Number 1, you need to closely mark them or closely supervise. Number 2, teach them to recognize opportunities and to seize them. 3, humble them by hunger. That is, let the fullness of the consequences of laziness bear down on them. Number 4, have zero tolerance for excuses. Have zero tolerance for excuses. We know that the lazy always have an excuse. There's always a reason why they couldn't get something done. There is always a reason why they are falling behind. They're always looking for something or someone to blame for their inability to rise up to be counted. A good leader would take a stand, never to acknowledge, accommodate, or approve any such excuses. And that may even mean that when they have credible excuses, all right, you still turn them down. All right? Although you would be on the lookout for that, but the idea is to communicate to them that excuses will not be accepted. That the what has come to be like a custom in their lives, all right, has to be done away with, because he's not helping them in any regard. He's not helping them in any regard. Luke 19, you would see that. That lazy guy was giving excuses. He said, I know you are, an austere man, you reap where you don't sow, you do this, you do that. Hello. But you are eating in the austere man's house, you are benefiting, you are collecting a salary. So all the while that you are enjoying benefits there, you don't know that he's a wicked man. Now that you are supposed to, make your own contribution, now is when you are bringing up all the issues. Okay? That's when you are bringing out all the excuses. So plain excuses. And of course, you could see the man was not willing to listen to any excuse. So number 5, you need to build their faith. You need to build their faith. You see, we said earlier on, I mean, you can't be successful without having faith in what you're doing. All right. They operate by fear. Even that servant said, I fear that because this is the kind of person you are, I just decided to take it easy, to be careful, and all of that out of fear. All right. Out of fear. But I like what Paul says. He said, I have fought a good fight. I have finished my course. I have kept the faith. All right. He said somewhere, fight the good fight of faith. And we're told, the just shall live by his faith. Check it. If you find anyone who is successful, they had faith, faith in the pursuit of their mandate, in the pursuit of their singular objective, not fear. Because fear will paralyze. Fear will make you say, there's a lion outside. But okay, so there's a lion outside, but there are other people who are outside. Are you the only one the lion is looking for? All right, so you need to build faith in them. You need to build, and that requires a lot of teaching. That requires providing a lot of encouragement. That requires doing the thing that helps them, to build faith. And I will talk about one of them, you know, um, shortly as well. Number 7 is, all right, make sure that you don't put things that are important in their hands. Okay? That you don't put things that are important in their hands. Don't commit valuable assets into their hands. Don't commit valuable assets into their hands. All right? Don't commit valuable assets. You have been told that when they hold assets, all right, valuable assets, they tend to deteriorate in their hands. So why would you want to put important things in the hands of, the lazy, in the hands of the sluggard? All right. But until you have seen an improvement or you have seen a change, you can't put those kinds of things in their hands. There are responsibilities you must not give them until you have been able to address their shortcoming. Okay. There are things you must not put into their hands. And then number 8, you need to paint a vision. You know what the Habakkuk says? It says, write the vision, make it plain upon the tablets, that he may run that readeth it, that he may run. Whoever reads it can run. That is, the vision, when it is clearly spelled out, all right, has a way of prompting and pushing people, giving them the impetus to act on it, that he may run. That is the effect of receiving the vision with clarity, is that the people who are to make it happen, they can run with it. That's not running, is not the lot of a lazy person. It means that if you truly receive a vision and it is clear to you, you have understanding, you cannot but run with it. You can't but run with it. I think I missed out a point after I said build their faith, build their understanding as well, and then don't saddle them with very precious responsibilities. Build their understanding. You recall what I said about understanding, that the major issue with the lazy is a lack of understanding. So you have to build the understanding. And luckily, that's why the main job of a leader is to teach. That's why the main job of a leader is to teach, is to impart his people, all right, with knowledge, is to build understanding, is to get the people to know that this is what needs to be done, and to get them to a stage where they are fully persuaded about what needs to be done. And that comes by them having solid understanding. All right. It's impossible for you to know that this thing is this valuable, to have the depth of understanding, and you're just lying around, hanging around, thinking that the thing will happen by itself instead of taking steps to work it out. Is a powerful way of addressing the issue of laziness. And then number 9, so I said paint the vision. Number 9, display quality love. you may be wondering why that is the case. Display quality love. But there's something that I saw in Romans, verse 12, and from verse 9. Let me read that for us quickly. He says, don't just pretend to love others, really love them. I'm reading the New Living Translation. Hate what is wrong, hold tightly to what is good, love each other with genuine affection, and take delight in honoring each other. Never be lazy, but work hard and serve the Lord enthusiastically. Never be lazy. You can see that. Never be lazy. But before you start saying people should never be lazy, look at the things that preceded it. A show of love, a practical show of true love. All right. So the leader needs to practically relate with these people in love. All right. And that has a way of prompting them, of giving them the impetus, all right, to redouble their efforts, to redouble their efforts. It's a mystery, but it's powerful and it works. And it works. Why? Even a slothful man does not want to disappoint the one who relates with them in love. That's the power of love. That's the power of love. So it is good for the leader who understands the power of love. The leader should develop, that love character in themselves. It's also a character issue, and engage it actively to relate to the lazy, not to talk down on them, not to abuse them. All right. To understand that it's a character deficiency like any other, and to know that it can be dealt with. All right. I said I remembered, a tenth one, which is develop passion in them. Develop passion in them. All right. When you are moved by passion, when you have passion for something, it's not likely you'll be lazy. Have you seen a lazy person, a passionate person who is lazy? No. There is that innate push, in them to get things done. All right. In line with, all right, what their passion is about. Okay. Um, so, I mean, Jesus said, the zeal of the Lord has consumed me. The zeal of the Lord consumed him. Was he just sitting down? He said that after he took an action that people, were wondering, um, what's going on here, because he suddenly brought out a whip and started beating, and overturning the tables of people who were selling, and exchanging money in the church, as it were, in the premises of the church. Said, you guys, this house is supposed to be a house of prayer. You guys have made it a den of thieves, and it's unacceptable. And then the people were thinking, why did he do this? And then they remembered, oh, the Bible says, the prophecy said, the zeal of the Lord has consumed me. Passion, all right, for his calling moved them to act. You can't be passionate and lazy. So, and passion, make no mistake, can be developed. It can be developed. It's not all right. I don't want to go there, but it can be developed. Hopefully, I will speak on that subject sometime, soon. So that's it. So instead of 9, you have 10 things that you can do, if you want to really know to lead lazy people effectively. You can lead lazy people. You can be effective at doing that. And I might add, I think the last one that I should add in how to lead them, if I didn't add that, then, this whole discussion would not be complete, is that after you have tried all of this and it is not proven to be effective, then you remove the lazy people from the team. All right. Then you do away with the lazy people from the team. All right. It's not wrong to do away with people who are not pulling their weight. What you don't want to do as a leader is to take that as the first action. That should be a matter of last resort. All right. It should be a matter of last resort. Why? When Jesus went to that, in that parable, he said, these 3 times I have come looking for fruit. That is, I've been working on you, I've been investing in you, I've been trying to get you to contribute your quota, all right, to what we're doing here. But somehow it has not worked. And he had to say to the carpenter, uproot this guy, this tree, let it stop encumbering the ground. The lazy should not be allowed to keep taking up space in the team after the leader has really taken steps to try and address their laziness. Ultimately, when that persists, they need to be excused from the team for the good of the team, for the good of themselves. That perhaps in the end, they are just, you know, a square peg in a round hole. All right. They're just a square peg in a round hole. And it's not the best. It's not what you want to do, to force the square peg into the round hole. All right. So I think that's like number 11. I think that's just good enough, but that's important is the last resort. So there you are. That's our discussion for today. It's taking a bit longer. Perhaps is trying to make up for yesterday as well. It's been leadership in 30 minutes, and my name remains Olatunji Shobodu, CEO, founder, Emmet Leadership Academy. Once again, I'd like to invite you, if you have gained anything from this session, please go ahead and subscribe, to the channel. That way, you get to be notified ahead of, other broadcasts like this. I come to you twice a week. Occasionally, you may have some other broadcasts, but twice a week on Mondays to hand you a nugget. It's called Leadership Monday. Hand you a nugget and to say this could be useful for you during the course of the week. And by Thursdays, 11 a.m. West African time, both days, then I come to you speaking to one aspect of leadership or the other. And Mondays is for just about 5-10 minutes. Thursdays is typically for 30 minutes. At times, it's over. At times, it's not as much, but it depends really on what we are talking about. And it's also that you know it the time that you spend is what you're worth. And so my hope is that with what we have shared today, it will help you to do leadership right. It will help you to do leadership right. The world is in dire need of good, credible leaders, and you and I ought to stand up to be counted and to be a source of providing, that quality leadership that will make the world a better place to dwell in. For other programs, you may have been seeing, the scroll on the screen. One of our programs that is coming up is starting in May. It's Profit from Parables. It's an adventure that I want to encourage you to be a part of. We're going to be walking through the 38 parables of Jesus. And if you understand what parables mean, how cornerstone, they were in the way Jesus operated, then you'd understand that if you can lay hold on the secrets that they contain and apply them to different aspects of your life, you can't. It will be a fantastic way of enriching your life, of changing the outcomes, that you get in life, all right, of scaling up. So join us. It's going to be an intensive program, and it will be my pleasure to lead that team into that wonderful adventure. There are other programs, you see them in the description area, and please feel free to share the link, introduce this to others if you know it can be a blessing to them. And then please also make your comments. We like to receive your comments. It tells us what more you want to hear. It tells us if this what is adding value to you and what we should add and what we should subtract, all so that, again, like I said, every minute that you spend listening to me or listening to us is worth your while. Once again, I appreciate you. Thank you for joining me today. And hopefully next week, I will keep the Thursday date. I will keep the Thursday date. Uh, all right. Take care. God bless you. Bye bye.